Joining me now is Sophie Mokoena, SABC News International Editor. Sophie, perhaps let's start with this and get a clear sense of the shift in tide, because that really is what it signifies. The fact that we have 24,000 voters turning out in London, more voters at any given voting station across the value chain of the IEC. Is that an indication that there is a greater appetite amongst the expat community of South Africa, or is this just sheer coincidence?
Well, earlier on the sister channel or the show SA Today, one South African in Switzerland said that she does follow the stories here at home thanks to technology, watching the news, including on SABC. It's what they do all the time, and therefore they are fairly informed in terms of the challenges we are facing in the country, and therefore, because they love South Africa, these are South Africans, these are Africans, much as they are abroad, but they want a better South Africa, a better Africa. And therefore, that's what has propelled voters, South Africans abroad, to go out in numbers. Now, I think it is the same message that's resonating in the country, where South Africans want better South Africa, a better continent, and a better world. And therefore, you can see that these elections are very, very important. Those queues in Trafalgar, if you were there in 1994, what I saw in Trafalgar, this is something I saw in Small Farm in Everton, where I was an electoral officer. And it speaks to South Africans when they really take charge in terms of their responsibilities in the country. They do that. Yes, particularly after 1994, the voter turnout was a bit low because people were relaxed and it was business as usual. They didn't care who becomes a leader of the country or different provinces. But you saw that shifting since 2009. South Africans saying, no, we want to have a say. And 2019, it got even more hectic based on what transpired between 2009 up to 2019. And therefore, even now, because we are still addressing the legacy of that period, they have decided we're going to go out in numbers and make our voices heard.
Yeah, if we are going to take a look at sort of the coverage that South Africa has been getting internationally, it really has been different this year compared to any other year. For instance, the ICJ case that South Africa has taken against Israel to The Hague, that has received, for the most part, depending on where you are in the world and depending on how you access your news, positive coverage, right? Does that play a role at all for international voters? Is that something that they register as their sentiment when they speak to journalists about why they decide who they're going to vote for? Or is it simply everyday bread and butter issues that they know about, hear about it, and vicariously live through it through their relatives that are still in the country? Things such as potholes, load shedding, crime, unemployment, and all the ills that we speak about every single day.
You can't divorce internationalism to the national question. You can't divorce that. South Africa is not an island, and you are correct. Look at the numbers at The Hague. You know that it was in January where we went to The Hague when South Africa presented its case. Only yesterday, Israel was replying to South Africa's case request for extra measures, and it was that case and that story was beamed all over the world, and South Africans are watching. But as I pointed out, South Africans are techno-savvy, and you know that all the broadcasters, particularly SABC, you get SABC all over the world. And I know all over the world, when I travel, South Africans and other people in the world are saying, yes, we know what's happening in South Africa. Some of them even identify with SABC. I don't even want to talk about South Africans because on the websites, on social media, they do follow. And therefore, that would include issues here at home. But you are correct. Those numbers at The Hague, when I'm speaking to an official at the IEC, Ntate Shiburi, he also pointed out that the suspicion is that that case propelled South Africans to understand that you have facilities here in Netherlands and make use of such facilities. But also the war in Ukraine. Earlier on, we did cross live to Moscow, and you saw South Africans there at the polling station.
Yeah.
This will speak to the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, Sophie Mokoena, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And of course, those insights will prove to be incredibly valuable when it comes to South Africa's voting on the 29th of May domestically. How does some of the international sentiments that we see from voters abroad translate to the sentiment of voters locally? Of course, that's a conversation that we will continue to have here on The Full View.